Uh, Good morning, everyone.
Hello, good
Thank
morning.
you for
Good
good
morning.
morning. Good morning. We would request everyone to be on mute, please. Thank you so much for joining in. Welcome to our webinar today with Miss Niti Gupta. So, just a little background about Miss Niti Gupta, that she's an engineering and MBA graduate from IIT Kharagpur, who's transitioned from corporate HR roles to pursue her passion for Montessori education. And as the founder parent of Sketches Montessori, Niti is dedicated to growing a community of young Montessori learners and like-minded parents who seek transformative education for their children. So today, Ms. Niti will be touching upon a very important topic, which is what should you know about your child's early years from 0 to 6. And as Maria Montessori famously stated, the most important period of life is not the age of university studies, but the first one period from birth to age of 6. So today she will emphasize the importance of early years in a child's life, particularly from birth to the age of 6. And it will be explained through the lens of the Montessori philosophy. It's over to you, Niti.
Thank you, Payal. So we are practically sitting in the same room. Thank you, Payal. Can you all hear me? If you could just give me an okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see some familiar faces and some new as well. So I'm Niti. And let's think about the topic that we have for today, what you should know about your child's early years. And when we say your child's, we don't mean Gauri's child or Jyotsna's child or Sumegha's child. We mean children in general, human children. And of course, that there are certain commonalities between all children, all human children. So the child today, which is born, is exactly the same as the child of the first human being, because we are the same species. So what's true today was also true for that first human child. So it's very important to think about our children in the sense that we are belonging to a same species, and to think of us as human beings is very important. Another important thing that we must keep in mind is that whatever we know together as humanity, so far, whatever we have been able to discover and invent, etc., is a very small part of what still lies out there to be discovered, to be understood. Because if you look at psychology as a discipline, as a study, is not very old. Maybe just 100 or 200 years old is when we have, as human beings, realized that there is something that needs to be studied about our mind. Yeah. So far, our study has mainly been about the physical features of what we are seeing about human beings or other animals. So what we know so far is very small, yet we do know some things which are important to consider, and that this learning is going to continue. In fact, our children are going to continue that discovery and that study. So when we look at human beings, we also understand that we are animals. right? We are all animals. And of course, there are things which we share with other animals. So let's, I also want to share with you a quote of Dr. Montessori, which will help us understand what we're going to discuss today. Children have a tendency to imitate. They must adapt to this world and be able to do all the things that are done in the environment. They imitate for this reason. So we know that children imitate, they copy us, but they don't copy it just for the sake of copying. They do it for a deeper reason. They need to adapt to this world that they have come into. There is a reason for that imitation. And I think we don't really think about that reason as well. And I was wondering when I was reading this quote, what does this mean to adapt to the world? So when we look at other animals, say a polar bear is born adapted to the world that it comes in. It lives in the cold environment. It has a thick fur coat to protect it, to keep it warm in that environment. If we were to bring that polar bear to India, it is not going to survive. It is well suited for the environment that it was born into. But if you change the environment of that polar bear, it is not going to survive. Similarly, if you think about cows, a cow, if it is not able to find any suitable vegetable or grass to eat, it cannot do anything. It will not be able to survive. So each animal is actually suited to a very specific kind of environment in which it is born. Each animal has a guide in his behavior, something that we call instinct, that leads to adaptation to that environment. Right? So we can say that when a young one is born, an animal's young one is born, it is born with a prefabricated psyche. That's the term Dr. Montessori uses. It is born with an already established psyche that allows it, that enables it to survive in the environment that it is born. There is a quote that by Mario Montessori that I would like to share with you. They have an instinct, they as in animals, they have an instinct which makes them appear to act intelligently, as if they know how to live, what to eat, what to do. But if you consider this carefully, you will realize that each animal's intelligence is valid only within the scope of its behavior. This means that their mentality and their intelligence are limited to a definite pattern. Their possibility of survival is also limited. So animals have in their bodies the tools or the instruments necessary for the support of their own life. Think about a tiger. It has weapons in its body for its defense or for catching its predator, for its prey. Or a tortoise has a shell for protection from the dangers of the world. It has it in its body. It is born with it. But now when you look at us, our species, human beings, we have not got anything on our body which helps us to defend ourselves or which helps us to keep us warm or which helps us to do things that animals you see doing. And if you look at our offspring, our children, our babies, it seems as if it takes forever for them to grow. It's a very long time for our human babies to become mature. Whereas a cow's baby is born, and within 2 hours, it is walking around. The calf knows where to find its food, and it is communicating with its mother within a very short span of time. And within 2 years, it is even mature as an adult. It can reproduce. But if you look at humans, Dr. Montessori says that we were put into this world in an ice age, without clothes, without weapons, and for our offspring being a kind of lump, which is completely dependent. In such conditions, human could either give up and die, or it could strive to develop his dormant potentialities and survive. That is what mankind did. A complex of immense variety of potentialities based on a few essential elements. One element is our brain, which is very different from the brain of other animals. Another element is bipedalism. We chose to get up and walk on 2 feet, leaving our forelimbs free, allowing our hands to do whatever we wanted. And lastly, we were made free from the psychic bonds that limited the other animals. A freedom of spirit. We did not have instincts like other animals had by birth. I'm not saying we didn't have instincts. I'm saying we didn't have instincts like other animals have at birth. So this was not a punishment, Dr. Montessori says it was not a punishment. If somebody were to look at other animals and us during at that time, it would seem as if it's a punishment, poor human being, born in this ice age, cold, without clothes, without any means in the body to defend itself or to find food. How will it survive? But in fact, he says he as in human, had been redeemed from the slavery which instinct implies. He had not been chained to any specialization of covering or tools or weapons of the body. We don't have any specialization like other animals do. And outwardly, he may appear to be the poorest of the poor because he had been given nothing by nature. But those who pity with the human being, they forgot that the gift of intelligence probably that we had because it was invisible. It is not clearly visible. So human had a reasoning intelligence which enabled him to make the use of the abstractions he made. For example, imagine the first, one of the first human beings, when they saw a rabbit with a very special kind of ability to dig with its forelimbs. He must have observed that there is a special kind of claw that this rabbit uses for burrowing and digging a tunnel in the ground. And that human must have thought, I wish I could do something similar. I wish I could do the same. I wish I could dig like a rabbit. So he wished for himself in this way all the things he had not got. He imagined himself with a digging instrument without possessing one in the body. So this imagination was put to use creatively. So maybe he realized that if I could use something around me, a stone or a piece of wood, and sharpen it in such a way to give it a point, because he observed that this claw is hard and is pointy, then I could also dig. So first seeing something external and then imagining it to use it for its advantage. And then working on the environment, working on that stone or that piece of wood to give it a kind of shape, to use it to dig. That is creating something. Creating something which did not exist. That is creation of the human being. So our imagination was put to use creatively, not fantastically, she said. Dr. Montessori says we didn't use our creativity fantastically. It's not that human beings saw a bird flying, flapping its wings and thought, oh, I could do that, and climbed up a tree and jumped from there trying to flap its arms. It would just break its neck. That's not what, that's a very extreme use of our imagination. We use our imagination creatively to create or bring to existence something that would not exist and might be of practical advantage. So he took this piece of stone or wood and made a point to it, and then began to dig with it. And to do this, he had to modify the stone. So we had to work on our environment. We had to work on the objects that we found in nature to use it for our advantage. You see the kind of intelligence that human had and which we all have, our babies have. So she said humans worked on and modified their environment and the materials found in nature to their advantage, to satisfy their needs and to survive. That is what humans have done since the beginning. Because they did not have anything on the body like other animals had. Dr. Montessori says that hunger and cold were sources of activity for the mind and the body. Once these needs were satisfied, once the body was satisfied, but the mind was not. To the mind, these problems gave suggestions, gave inspiration and problems. The mind continued to produce ideas. The mind was not at rest until it was satisfied. Humans created a workable reality of what the mind had imagined using his ideas and his hands. Now we will have to see the importance of hands. Hands are not lifeless instruments, right? It's not like a pair of scissors or a tool, a tong or a spoon. It's not lifeless. Our hands. Our hands have to learn. They were made to learn like the rest of the man. Our hands had to learn how to do things. So the first task was this mind had to control and develop the hands to do what it had imagined to do. Yes, human was not born to use the hands like this, right? It came with a potentiality. But our mind had to control the hand in order to do what it wanted to do. There were errors, there were problems encountered, of course. We didn't make the perfect kind of stone or the perfect kind of pointy wood the first time. Right? It was not possible to make it perfect in one go. Many iterations were made, many problems were observed. The tool that we humans made were continued to make better and better and more efficient. It is not that man could make a perfect instrument or tool for the first time, a lot of trial and error until he was successful. So through control of error, this is something we often speak of, control of error, man proceeds towards self-perfection. And this process and the journey of self-perfection needs activity, needs work, manipulation, movement, and experience. Only with work could control of error make not only physical ability, but man's intelligence itself grew through understanding. So there was an example in one of her books. Imagine this man, early man, observing a bull killing a fox, or a wolf trying to eat its young one with its horns. When man must have seen it, it would have thought, oh, I also want. What if I also had such a tool, such a horn with which I could defend myself? In order to bring this to reality, to create this, man must have picked up some sticks or logs of wood lying around. And it tied a sharp stone at the end of that stick to make a kind of spear, if you would like to say it. And then it worked. The spear worked. The man could protect itself from a wild animal by throwing it towards that wild animal. But another time, one of the sticks did not move in the way the man wanted to move it, wanted to direct it. It moved in a different way. And then he couldn't understand why that happened. Then he started to observe. Every time he would throw that stick, it would not go in the direction man wanted. It was a problem. Then he observed that this stick is crooked. The other sticks are straight, but this stick is a little crooked. It's curved. So maybe is that the reason why it's not going in the direction I'm wanting it to go? And then with a lot of experiments, he realizes that is the reason. It is not going in the right direction because of its shape. Then he had to think, how do I make the stick straight? So every time man encountered a problem, it wanted to solve that problem. And movement was involved in that. Experience was gained. And that's what made man more intelligent and more wiser. Man's intelligence itself grew through understanding. Now, there is no teacher there to teach man. This is how it is, it is not going in the right direction because it is crooked. That was self-education. Human beings self-educated themselves through all this experience and work in their environment. Now, what was true then is also true today. Experience and activity are necessary in order to make intelligence expand and acquire greater understanding. And that is why she said that the Montessori method will never die, as it serves those very special traits that are the tendencies of humans throughout history. For the development and growth of this intelligence, the child must be allowed spontaneous activity, to work with his hands, and to be provided with a control of error. When we think of the word intelligence, I think we don't have a very clear understanding. I checked the dictionary and it says intelligence is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. It's not about memorizing information. It's about acquiring knowledge and applying that knowledge and the skills that are required. It's not mere memorization of facts. It's not mere knowing of information. It's much deeper. So starting from nothing, humanity has reached this level of civilization that we enjoy today, that we take for granted. This existence of civilization that we have today proves that from the beginning, our tendency to work, humans' tendency to work, is present, and that he had to go through these similar processes that I have just described. So a child being born today in our society is a blank page. That's the term Dr. Montessori uses. It's a blank page. It doesn't come with that understanding. It just comes with the potential to do all these things that humans, we have collectively been able to do. The body is ready. The organs in the physical body are ready. But the child has to learn, has to adapt to this environment that he has come in. It is not like other animals who are already having a prefabricated psyche, because that animal's environment is set. If it changes, it cannot survive, right? But human beings have created, constantly created, and has come to this kind of civilization. So the child born in our families have to adapt to this civilization, have to adapt to this environment, which is created by human beings. She called it supra nature, a nature which has been built on top of the existing nature. It's a man-made nature. Our house that we have today, it's a supra nature. It's not nature. If you want to imagine us in nature, you have to imagine ourselves without any houses, without any clothes, without any tools, sitting on the barren land or in a forest. That's not what the child is born into in our families now, is it? The child is born into civilization that we have created. So naturally, to be able to live in this world, the child has to adapt to this environment that we are offering the child. And we in India, in Noida, may be offering a different kind of environment. A child in South India may be slightly different kind of environment. In Japan, maybe a very different kind of environment, right? So the child in any family has to adapt to their culture, their culture and time and place that they are born into. That's the work of the child. But there's something called human tendencies that Dr. Montessori talks about, which are same throughout. The same tendencies that the first human being had, and we all have, we still have, and will always have. Human tendencies, a list of tendencies that the child also has. The way the tendencies are manifested are different in the different age, in the different age groups. So when you carefully observe a human being growing, you could observe that the tendencies are very much there, but they are manifested differently in the age of birth to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18, 18 to 24, and after that. Very different. So the baby is born with that tendency. Just to name a few, the tendency to order or orient, the tendency to explore, the tendency to observe or pay attention or to notice things, tendency to speak or to communicate, tendency to associate, tendency to work, to be active, to manipulate, tendency to repeat, to be exact, tendency to abstract and to imagine, to calculate, And finally, the tendency to self-perfect. We all have these same tendencies and we utilize them. We follow these tendencies every single day. And so does our newborn child. So the young child has the tendency to work, the work too, to imitate the adults around him so he can adapt to the environment, as it does not come with a prefabricated psyche like other animals. It is born fragile and so dependent for that reason. So it can be close to the mother or the adult. If our child was born independent like other animals' children, it would not have got the opportunity to adapt to this culture. It is born helpless and so dependent for that reason, that we always keep that child with us so that it can see what we are doing in our daily lives. So it can imitate how the adults function in the environment, what language is spoken, how the needs are met, how these objects around that I see are used. What are they used for? Nature has provided humans with some special gifts to absorb all the to absorb all the culture that the child is born into. So we have to understand that when a human child is born, their physical body is made, but they are yet to build their mind. They are yet to build, Dr. Montessori calls it psychic embryo or spiritual embryo, is still to be built. And that is what happens in the first 6 years. It's a lot of learning, it's a lot of development, it's a drastic development. So to learn all of this, to be able to function, the nature has given the child some special gifts, which are given for a very specific time, which are given for the first 6 years. That is the absorbent mind. The child has an absorbent mind, and the child goes through certain sensitive periods of development. The absorbent mind is able to totally absorb, to take in as it is from the environment without any filters, without, it doesn't choose that I take this and not that. It doesn't choose that way. It just takes in. And there are many analogies that Dr. Montessori makes in her writings. Absorbing like a sponge. Sponge put in dirty water will absorb dirty water. Sponge put in clean water will absorb the clean water. It will not choose. Or like the camera, the first camera that was made. So I'm not going to go into those details because we do have limited time. But the power in the first 6 years, the gift of the child is to take in from the environment as it is, without filtration. And initially, it does so unconsciously. It doesn't even realize that it is taking in. And the child goes through certain sensitive periods of learning. There are sensitive periods for movements, sensitive period for language, there is a sensitive period for order, and so on. So what is this sensitive period? It's like a special inclination towards learning something effortlessly and totally. And to know that these sensitive periods exist and this absorbent mind exists, think about the way our children learn language, which is very different from how we learn language now at this age. The child takes in all the grammar, all the words, the pronunciations, Suddenly, the child starts to speak around between 1 and 2 years of age. We cannot learn language like that. So that's a very special mind which is at work and that age that can learn language, and not just one, any number of languages that are offered in the environment through human interactions, through contextual learning. That is how we learn language. If there is a multicultural family and you know 2 or 3 or more languages, the child will just absorb all those languages totally without even getting confused which word to use in which language. We cannot learn like that. So this absorbent mind which the child has does not is only there for the first 6 years. And thankfully, if we continue to have that absorbent mind now, we would go mad because it is so powerful. All the experiences around the child that the child absorbs becomes a part of their mind. It doesn't fill in the mind. It's so one of the trainers recently, Ruku, said it's not as if it's water in a glass. These experiences that children feel, it's not like water in the glass, which is separate from the glass. They become a part of the mind. The child builds its mind in the first 6 years through the experiences that the child gets in the environment. The attitude towards life, the attitude towards object, our relationships with each other, the way we are talking, the tone we are using, the expressions we use, how we react to different situations, how we are eating, how we are treating different people in our environment, how we are treating each other. It becomes a part of their mind. It becomes a part of their being. It is very difficult to undo this. It's nearly impossible to undo this. This learning is permanent and it cannot be reversed. And when you think about all this, it might feel that it is very scary, these first 6 years are also very scary for an adult. We have to be very conscious of what we are doing in front of our children. And they don't choose what to take in and what not to. They're constantly learning. They're constantly taking in from their environment. And by 2.5, the child that we usually invite in our environments is an experienced human being. By 3 years, if the child is left free to absorb and develop normally in a conducive environment, he becomes the master of his hand and undertakes with joy a variety of human activities. These activities help him to develop the power of concentration. Concentration is something that children develop. The child thinks as he works. Civilization that we are enjoying today, that we are in today, is itself a synthesis of work and intelligence. Man creates not only with his mind, but also with his hands. There is a term that we use, mental starvation. Mental starvation is the malnutrition of the psyche. It can be observed in children who find themselves in environments which are devoid, which lack means for intellectual work. It is only through appropriate work and activity that the character of the child is transformed. So we have to be conscious of what the child is doing with their hands. What are we offering in the environment for this child to do with their hands? And now that we know that the child is trying to adapt itself to the civilization, to our culture, to our homes, we will obviously, it's very commonsensical to offer them real purposeful work. It doesn't make sense to give them pretend toys. or things which are unreal, because the child is constantly trying to make sense of this world, to make sense of reality. This gives us guidance of what kind of books to buy, what kinds of materials to keep around the child, what kind of conversations to do with the child. When you see your child working with something, it may seem trivial to you, but it's the child is working. And as I said, when they're working with their hands, they're also working with their mind. They're building their mind. So we must not interfere. We must not intervene and disturb the child. Unconsciously, without being aware of this power and this truth, we are the biggest obstacle to our own child's development. The child whom we love so much, whom we are able to sacrifice everything. He says the biggest obstacle to a child's natural development is the adult. So we must be very conscious, and 1 hour is too less to talk about these in details, but whatever I have shared just now is nothing that I'm sharing on my own. It's just something that I have learned and is written in Dr. Montessori's books. I have quoted her at various points. My intention was just to perhaps help us realize what is the adaptation that is needed, and how we are very different from animals, and how we don't have something that other animals have at birth, and that's why it has to be developed. And there are certain means to develop those skills and our mind itself. The mind itself is developing actually. We are not a complete human being at birth. For other animals, that time period is included in the gestation. If you look at it more deeply and study, you would probably read that human beings are born much earlier in the embryonic phase. So the part of the embryonic development happens after birth. So the child needs a very special, very carefully prepared environment, because the adult environment, just how we enjoy life, may not be very conducive for their learning. Starting from the size of the furniture, starting from the kind of light that we are used to. We also have to realize that the child comes from the womb suddenly to a very, very different world. And we are not being mindful of that drastic change. It's actually a time of a lot of suffering and struggle for the child. If we are not careful, we are not aware of those aspects. So through her observations, Dr. Montessori's observations and long time of work with children, we came to realize, it became clear that it was not play, but the work connected with developing to his inner needs, which led the child to loftier levels, both in the psychic and the physical realms. In the first house of children, that's what Dr. Montessori observed, that when she offered food for the children for the psyche, even their physical health improved. Our mind is totally connected with our body. There's so many interesting examples. Think of the many sports personalities, wonderful sports personalities that we have. The way Roger Federer or Sachin Tendulkar, for example, the way they move. It's not just movement, it's their mind and body together. That's a skill that one has developed in life. It doesn't come by birth. So there's a lot of work that babies have to do, a lot of work that our toddlers and infants and Katha children have to do. They're constantly working, and we are just providing them with an environment which is conducive for them to use their hands to build their minds, and then which further builds their abilities in a very natural setting with gentle guidance, with appropriate guidance, not excessive help, just the right kind of help. So it's already 10:48. I would like to stop now because there is no end to this really. Um, I would like to invite Sumegha to say a few words if they're coming, because Sumegha is a parent with us. She's Punya's mother, and I'm sure she has something to share.
Good morning, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Niti, for giving a beautiful um, sharing your understanding about adaptation, about how the absorbent mind and the sensitive period helps the babies to adapt. So I have a daughter who's 3.5 years old. She's in the first plane. And I was very fortunate that 2 years before she was born, I happened to read Absorbent Mind, which is a book by Maria Montessori. So when she was born, what kept ringing in my head was how Maria Montessori says that concentration is the foundation of character. It leads to the formation of character, and how important it is for children to work. And I I live in a joint family. Punya's dada dadi are there. Punya travels a lot to her nana nani's place. So it's a huger joint family there. And I think as a mother, it was initially a little daunting task for me as to how do I allow my daughter um, her well-deserved right to work. And I think a lot of effort goes into it. Sometimes you have to talk it out to your family members. Sometimes you hear their perspective, you understand, but you still go ahead with it. And I feel very fortunate that I could at my house allow my daughter um, the freedom and the respect to work. And we work in a lot of different settings together. But I think the most important for me is how we manage to have our work in the kitchen. Because anyways, the kitchen and the gas comes up, and then there's always this fear that comes up. And but it's really nice how she is now accepted as a very important part of the kitchen. Everybody knows that she will cook 25 out of the 30 days, at least the non-flame part of it. And what I really personally feel that effort of getting her into it is completely, and it fulfills some very basic need of hers, that we have a zero screen time, and that zero screen time is not out of threat, it's not out of punishment. We just don't have the time for the screen, and we don't have the need for it. There's so much more fulfilling that happens in the kitchen when we are together making something for someone else. We don't need the screen. And it's really funny when she goes back to her nana nani's place, and when they are switching on the TV, they get a little worried when they come, because they know she's not going to let them watch TV either. So it is something, because it's that level of no, that level of a strong willpower no cannot come if something very innate is being fulfilled about the child. And I also think that's she's 3.5 years. I've never heard her say that she's bored, because there's no boredom. There's so much of work happening at the house. The point is just to make the house wherever possible at things at her level, and give her time, be okay with the mess, and allowing her the journey to go through that entire process. So there's no boredom, there's no need for a screen time. It's also economical. It's much easier to have the child be a part of your life than go out and buy expensive toys. And I also think, coming back to what Niti said about adaptability. So when you're in the kitchen and you have this when you take these small decisions about if you're cooking something and you ask your help, would you like to eat something? And you include, if she says a yes, or for your children, when you're cooking, you cook something larger, in larger quantity. So this is all a part of culture, that the child, which I feel Punya is absorbing, because now, she herself offers that, someday she'll go and tell the help, I want to cook something for you. So what should I cook for you? If it's your birthday, I'll make something for you. So it's not something that I've taught her through moral stories. It's something that absorbed from the environment, and she's getting adapted to the part that's the culture of the house. She's getting adapted to that. And also, small things like, I feel sometimes, it's not always, she's also learning, she's also a child, but sometimes I feel she's mindful about wastage, because in our house, her dada dadi are very particular that the food should not get wasted. So, she thinks sometimes about it. And again, this is not something that that dada dadi have given a big lecture about or told her examples. It's something that she has absorbed and she has adapted to. So I do see that effort of getting your child to work helps the child adapt, helps the child actually to see how small decisions are being taken, and that becomes a part of the child. And also, as Niti was mentioning, in 0 to 6 years old, there's this sensitive period of movement, language, and order. These three she mentioned. So coming back to the movement, like when we started cooking, she was completely off the gas that time. But showing her how to open the drawer. Does it have to be rash, or does it have to be gentle? How you pick up the pan. So these are all movements which are which can be done very gracefully, right? And the child is absorbing that. That determines the relationship of the child with those objects. uh, so I felt that was also, and she loves it. When we ask her that, Punya, go to the fridge and get this. So this is again movement she loves. It's purposeful. She gets to open the fridge. She gets to pick up things. So it's very strange. Generally people say that children love to go outside and they like to spend 2 to 3 hours. With Punya, we have observed that's not something that she needs. She's very happy being at home, because there's so much of movement that can happen very much at home as well. Even when you're in the kitchen, a lot of language comes up about the names of the object, the processing, the differences, minute difference between, different processes. So I felt that was another good benefit that she's derived from the entire experience. And I just like to just to strengthen what I was trying to say. Uh, uh, Miss Niti and I happened to attend a talk by a trainer, Rukmini Rajgopal, uh, uh, and she shared a very interesting example of how she had a student who was not interested in working in activities, and how even if she would just turn her head, and there would be he would probably climb on the bamboo tree, and how there was nothing that was working with him till one day he was given a task. It was not that he was given a task, he himself felt interested in cleaning up a piece of I think some object in the environment. It was probably some small chest of drawers, and how he spent 3 hours doing it, and he was never the same afterwards. And I just wanted to, I mean, that was one example that really resonated with me, because I felt that as parents, we may not have all the materials of the Montessori environment. Our understanding of the Montessori environment is also something that's growing. However, this is something which we can let our children do, allow them to work so that they can make the most of the sensitive periods. They can absorb as much a part of our culture, and also they can adapt to the current civilization well. Um, that's what I wanted to share about my experience in bringing up Punya. Yeah.
Thank you, Sumika, for sharing that lovely experiences. Can you hear me? Yeah? I would like Payal, I think she's coming in to share a few things.
Yes, can you hear me? Thank you, Niti. Thank you, Sumega, for this wonderful session. We will be taking questions in a little while. But before that, I would just want to share with all of you that we have two more amazing talks that are coming up in the month of March and in the month of April. If you could just second. So we have a wonderful talk coming up on the 16th March, which I would request everyone to attend. It's a talk by Aparajita Negi and Pia Sukanya. So they will be discussing about parenting the Montessori way. And on the 13th April, we have a talk that is coming up by Rukmani Ramachandran and Ruby La. So we would request everyone to attend this as well. On 13th April, we will share the venue with you very soon. But just to give you a basic introduction that at Sketches, we proudly embrace the principles and methodologies advocated by AMI. So AMI is the Association Montessori International, and it serves as a guiding body for Montessori educators worldwide. And by aligning ourselves with the AMI ethos, we ensure that our students benefit from an authentic Montessori experience. And in India, the organizing committee, which and Sketches Montessori has a representation at the IMF Foundation Board of Trustees through our co-founder, Mr. Nishant Gupta, and he's a trustee with this organization. So Nishant Gupta's involvement with IMF exemplifies our dedication to fostering collaboration with the Montessori community and driving forward the principles of holistic child-centered education in our country. We will take questions from here now. Does anyone have any questions that they would want to ask? You can unmute yourself and ask the questions now.
Perfect. I think I explained so well, maybe. Or maybe everybody's in deep thought.
Hi, Niti. I
Yes,
have one question.
yes.
Basically,
Sure,
I
please.
want to have an understanding. How can we help children who are either undergoing any kind of neurological delay or a neurological disorder, like children who are on the spectrum or have speech delays or have ADHD symptoms? How can we help them to develop skills which are
important for their functioning through the Montessori philosophy?
Right. So first of all, this philosophy is and the method
Yeah, or
works
the
for
Montessori
all
methodology.
children. It works for all children.
Mhm.
Of course, every child's specific needs have to be taken into consideration. And in
Right.
this case, I'm sure you are, in this, you might be taking some advice and therapies, etc., from specialists
Mhm.
who help with neurodivergence, etc.
Mm.
So it has to go hand in hand somehow. You at home, I don't know the age of the child. I'm not sure about the details, but for example, at home, again, creating a conducive environment for the child where the child can learn how to be independent, be physically independent first. There should be an order, because an order in the physical environment creates a lot of safety and security in an individual, and then only they can feel comfortable and go on to explore, go on to work in the environment. So if things are kept at the right place, there aren't changes every now and then, that would help every child actually, whether neurodivergent or neurotypical. But like I said, sense of order is very important for them. A routine also, not just physical order, and a routine. So when they get up in the morning, this is what they do, and then this is what is the next thing to be done. It may not be by the clock.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. It has to be
Yes, yes.
A and then B and then C and so on.
Mm.
So this helps helps anybody for that matter, even adults, to kind of be rooted and grounded, and then be comfortable exploring to learn.
Mm.
If we are uncomfortable and we don't know what to expect, then it's difficult to go into deeper concentration and work, etc. So this kind of routine should be provided to all children at home, right? And of course, work with the hands. For any child, any human being, work with the hands helps them create their mind,
Mm. Yes, that
right?
definitely helps.
And there are more details, etc., which it would not be possible to share here, and I frankly I would not be the right person, because there are specific training which is also offered by AMI for you know for, for children who are on the spectrum, or
Okay.
who are neurotypical, and how Montessori can be offered to them. But I can say for sure that it would be the same philosophies and principles where the advice specialists have offered also. Yeah, I hope that answers a bit of your question.
Yes, yes, it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your insight.
Welcome. Thank you. Any other questions? So there is a thumbs up. There is a hands up. Yeah,
Yes,
Akshay.
yeah, I had a question. Hi. Um,
Yes,
so
hello.
my question was around, um, for setting up like a space for the child, with the, let's say, furniture, bookshelf, or desk and everything.
Mhm.
But there's also a question around, let's say, if we do it in a room, will that make the child sort of just engrossed in her own room, and let's say not interact, go around the house or interact with
Not
everyone. So
really.
like, being
Mhm.
introvert versus sort of extrovert sort of thing. So that was the question that I had. Do you think there is a risk of that? Or
No, so ideally, all rooms in the house, any spaces where the children are moving around, there should be something for them to work in. It doesn't mean that there has to be only one room for them. Of course, if the child is very young and not moving around, then that room is sufficient. But when the child has started to move around, crawl around, walk around, whatever, the child is exploring other places outside that room, and there should be something for the child in all areas, in all spaces.
Understood. Understood.
Yes. And at this point of time, thinking whether they would be extroverts and introverts, it's a very early stage because they're really developing their personality. So I think if everything is offered very holistically and naturally to them, they are going to just, pick something that suits them. With this method, children, they follow their own natural inclinations and they develop into a unique personality. It doesn't mean that everybody has to be the same.
Hi, this is Vartika here. I'm Asha's wife. I also have a question. Like, is there any Montessori toy or activity tools bank or like a sharing platform available where we can share these tools and toys with other kids, and our kid can share like maybe some like pre-loved stuff or something?
I'm not aware of such platform, but um, you are asking because you would like to have something at home. Is that what
Yeah, actually,
you
yeah. I
mean?
mean, I was just wondering, how beautiful that would be to have a space or like a platform where we can share all our Montessori tools and toys available for different ages, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it will be kind of it will build a community, and then
Tools,
it will
you'll see that they're
also be,
materials.
yeah, yeah, and
Yes,
it's
yes.
also
And
like, because
mhm,
nowadays we talk about how we can build our circular economy and create less carbon impression. So I believe,
yeah,
our
we'll
child would
definitely
also
find out.
learn from the very beginning. They would
Right,
also learn, how to be more environmental friendly and all.
right. We'll definitely find out something and we will share with you. If we
And
have your email address, we would reach
can I
out to you.
share something on that?
Yeah, please, sure.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I know of an organization. It's not basic. I know their Insta handle. So they are
Mm-hmm.
into providing a lot of toys for children of all ages across all age groups. But I don't know how specific into Montessori, providing Montessori based tools they have or toys. But as far as for physical development of child is concerned, you can check their Insta handle. It's by the name of Just Play.
Okay.
They have a toy renting service, and they deliver all
Okay.
across NCR, Gurgaon, Delhi,
Okay.
Noida. So you can check their
Mm-hmm.
Insta handle, and probably if
Just
something
play.
suits you, then you can get in touch with them.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's really helpful.
Yeah, most welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want you to be mindful of for very young children, the home is sufficient. All the natural materials that you have at home, it's really sufficient. You don't have to invest in special toys as such, and
Yeah,
everything on the
so
name of
that is
Montessori
why
may
they
not be
rent out, and you
not
can.
may not be really Montessori. So because it's not trademarked, so a lot of people end up misusing this term, and
Hmm.
so we have to be very careful of the need of the child and the age that they're at, and these Montessori materials that we even have at our school are not toys. They are materials and they're very scientifically designed, and they have to be used in a certain way. We have to learn the right time to offer something, and how to use it. So unless and until you have decided that you're homeschooling your child, and Montessori is a method that you would like to follow, and you are getting trained to use these materials and really follow your child, only then I would advise you to keep something like that at home. Otherwise, natural home life, adult life, where work in the kitchen, working, doing laundry, organizing things, exploring nature is good enough, and a lot of language with the book reading, etc. of course, introducing real stories to children, because they have to be rooted in reality, and otherwise you don't get a normal development. That's something Dr. Montessori called normalization.
Yes. Can you elaborate a little bit more around the real stories that you're talking about?
Yes, Sakshi?
Hi, Niti. Thank you so much for your wonderful talk.
Hi.
Uh, just a
Thank
question.
you.
In fact, it's something I would like your opinion on. So, especially for
All
kids
right.
who are now between the age of 5 to 6, they are quite
Mm-hmm.
using them and doing different kinds of activities. So sometimes, I mean, we as adults, we have this notion of some productive things and some things which are not very productive. So I do understand that that may not be always correct, our idea of productiveness and the
Mm-hmm.
child's idea of productiveness. But it's at times it does happen that the kids or kids are engaged in things where they definitely are using their hands and they have concentration, but we feel that probably not the most productive thing. So one, should we even be interfering or not? Because we should just rely on the child's idea of productiveness and just let them, do their work. Or should we be nudging them into a direction wherein, probably they use their hands or they shift their work to something more productive from our point of view. I hope
Hmm.
I was able to
Yeah.
convey my.
So I understand. So one thing we need to understand is that if the child is really absorbed in something and working with concentration, that's not the right time to offer them something
Mm,
else. But if you feel that this is something or you feel that you would like to offer them something more challenging or something different, then you can at a different time keep it in the environment for them, or suggest it to them, or maybe demonstrate that work to them, and then let them choose, because children are the right decision makers there. They know what they need. We can only offer them, and then their response to that new work would indicate whether they are ready for it or not, or how they would like to engage with it. Does that make sense? So our
yeah.
work is to
I mean,
offer.
my also one of my
Yes.
things. Yeah, one of my things was like, for example, my son is really involved in, a lot of origami and cutting and pasting. This is what he's inclined, at least for the past few months. Now, that also results in a lot of wastage of paper. So we do restrict it to a number of papers per day, but we do feel that maybe allowing him to do it, is it also allowing him to know that I can waste so many papers, which I don't know if he should be allowing. I mean, that's the kind of confusion we are dealing with.
Hmm. So I mean, you could always use that paper for something else, but it's okay. You can maybe keep
Yeah, it
whatever
is the
number
rough
you
paper,
decide,
so I get some rough papers from
4 or 5,
work. Yeah.
and for the day it's fine. You can always see, limits are important, but
Hmm.
I mean, giving the idea. So once a child makes something with origami, what do you do with that paper? Maybe you can
Hmm.
use it for some decoration, or maybe you can gift it to somebody. It could be like a
Yeah.
birthday greeting or something, or it could be used to tell a story, etc. Otherwise, it's if you've collected a good number of them in a box, then you can always recycle it, or make something out of it.
All right. Yeah.
Right. So I think, yeah, that's something, yeah, which I also thought of at a point where I had lots of boxes of origami
Yeah. I'm
collecting
like, that's
dust.
what we are facing with. We have files
But the
full of
thing is,
paper
but
now.
the thing is, see, it's not about making origami. It's the internal learning that has happened in the
Yes.
mind, which is
Yes. Absolutely.
important. Materials, that's not the work of the child.
Hmm. Hmm.
So she said, our trainer said, the work that you see on the mat, or the material that the child is working with, that's not the work of the child.
Hmm.
The real work is happening inside, which you cannot see. You see, in the first year, the child is building their mind, the way they think, the way they work, and they're building their skills, the hand movements, etc. So that's the real work,
Correct. I completely
right?
agree.
So
Yeah.
so there can be limits, so she also said that real development is with limited resources.
Hmm.
That's why in our environment also we have only one copy of each material. There is a shredder, and since we have introduced the shredder, it's a very popular material, but only with the paper that is available for shredding. They cannot get fresh paper to shred. And if the
Hmm.
box doesn't have any more paper to be shredded, that's it. We don't do it. There's nothing to be shred. So they have to wait. So then the learning is where they're waiting, you know,
Correct.
they are
Yes.
then choosing to do something else. So if there's something broken, it's broken, then it's important for them to realize that, uh, if you just immediately get something new, replace that broken material with a new vase or something, then they don't learn, they have to understand that something is broken. It's not available for some time now until it is
Correct.
fixed or it is bought again. So
Yeah. Thank you
we
so much,
have
Niti.
to introduce the children to the real life, basically.
Yes.
All right, we have surpassed the time that we had set, all of us, from our day. I hope this was. Sumega, did you have something to say? I saw your hand raised up before we wind up.
That's all right. There was something I wanted to mention, but you kind of addressed it. It's all right. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was lovely to interact with you and share something from what we have learned. We look forward to the next meeting. Bye. I would
Thanks for
recommend
time,
reading
Niti.
Montessori books.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
That's the best way
Thank
to
you.
learn about
Thank you so
Montessori,
much.
actually. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Niti.
Thank you.
Good day. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.